We're going to look at the things that can shift supply and demand. And here we're going to focus on the supply shifters. So this is the two graphs of the shifts of supply. Again, we have this increase in supply where at any given price, so we're looking at given prices, we now are willing to make greater levels of quantity. The quantity has increased for a given price. So that would be an increase in supply. And then we have the opposite over here with a decrease in supply. When one of the non-price factors changes, we will get a shift in supply. So when price changes, we move along our supply curve. But when a non-price factor changes, we get a shift of the supply curve, right? So an increase in supply is a shift of the curve to the right, and decrease is a shift of the supply curve to the left. We will recap these shifters fairly quickly, but the three that our book lists, again, is input costs, the number of sellers, and any other outside options that you may have. So we will quickly recap these. All right, so the first one is a kind of straightforward one, the input cost or the cost of production. If your explicit cost for the item that you're producing changes, this will obviously change your willingness to supply. Pretend you supply banana splits. If the cost of bananas increases, this decreases your ability to supply. And so you have decreased supply if the input cost goes up. The next one is also kind of an obvious one here, the number of sellers. The more people entering the market willing to supply goods will increase the quantity that the market is willing to supply at every given price. So if we increase the number of sellers, we will increase the supply as well. The third supply shifter is a little bit trickier. Here we're looking at outside options. When your outside options change, it will cause your opportunity cost to change. Opportunity cost is part of the cost of supplying. When your opportunity cost changes, the quantity that you are willing to supply at every price will now change as well. If your opportunity cost increases, right, greatly, your supply will decrease, right? So if you are no longer a banana split supplier, but a banana farmer, right? And now all of a sudden your land could be used for farming oranges instead. So growing and farming oranges, you could now produce these. And now all of a sudden, wow, the demand for oranges has gone crazy. So your outside option, your option that you're not currently doing, your opportunity cost of creating oranges has now skyrocketed. And so now you're not willing to supply as many bananas at every given price because you could take your land and instead grow oranges and sell them for great costs, right? Note that this is different than when your price itself goes up. The price of bananas hasn't gone up. The price of some outside option has changed, right? And so we have to look at this. This is just like the explicit cost, the shifter number one, where if your cost goes up, your supply shifts back. Here, it's just that if your cost in the form of an opportunity cost goes up, your supply shifts back, and vice versa. All right, so that then gives us our three things that can shift the supply curve. We have the costs of production, the explicit or input cost of production can change our supply curve. The number of sellers in the market can change it. And then also our opportunity costs are a part of our overall economic costs, which are what our supply curve is made of. Our supply curve includes both the explicit cost, the first shifter, and the opportunity cost, the third one here.